Hello everyone. Introduction is back again with a new video, and today we are going to discuss the question and answers of class 6 NCRT chapter 1. Okay, and before proceeding ahead with the Q&A, I would just quickly summarize what this chapter was all about. So the chapter name was What, Where, How, and When. So we will be discussing all of what the earliest people used to do, where they used to live, how they used to live, and when was the time period when things started happening first time, where was the first crop grown, and what people how people change their lifestyle over the period of time. We will be discussing all of it. Okay. So around River Narmada, around several hundred thousand years ago, this was the bank along which earliest of the people lived. Okay. And these people were skilled gatherers and they used to gather food. Also, they had very vast knowledge of growing the plants. They used to collect fruits and roots. And also, apart from being the hunters, there were also some people who used to hunt animals for food. Okay, and around 8,000 years ago, the very first time crops such as wheat and barley was grown, and both women and men, they began to grow the crops. And where was the region? So Suleiman and Kirkar Hills was the region where this crop was first began to be grown. Okay. And also people began to be rearing animals as well, like sheep were there, goats, cattle, and they lived in villages. So till now we do not had the existence of cities, only villages. Okay. And later we would see that cities also started to emerge. Okay, and now talking about the Garo Hills and the Vindhyas that is located in the central India. So here some of the in some of the areas agriculture started to develop. Okay, and for the very first time rice was grown to the north of the Vindhya. Now talking about the river Indus and its tributaries. I hope you remember what tributary is. Tributaries basically is are a small rivers that flow into a large river. Okay, moving ahead. So cities emerged or developed around which bank? Around the banks of the Ganga and its tributary. And I hope you remember the tributary of Ganga is known as Son. Okay, so around these cities started to develop, and the time period was 2,500 years ago. Okay, and also there was a very huge kingdom and very popular and known kingdom, powerful kingdom back then that existed along these rivers to the south of the Ganga was Magad kingdom. Okay, and it was actually lying in the state of Bihar. And people used to move from one place to another, and because of moving from one place to another, it led to the mixture of cultures and traditions and sharing of new ideas, and people learn new ways like carving stones. They learned about composing music and cookies for several hundreds of years. Okay, now talking about the name and the term India and Bharat, from where it emerged and how we call it and why we call it India and Bharat. Okay, so the name India actually comes from the river Indus, and it belongs from a Sanskrit word called as Sindh. Okay, so what happened was around 2,500 years ago, when people came from the northwest, like Iranians and Greeks, they named the river Indus as Hindus or Indus. Okay, and that is how and also they named it as Hindus or Indus, and all the people who were living to the east of the river, okay, to the east of the river was called as India. And now talking about Bharat, so Bharat actually is a word that came from Rig Veda, the earliest of the Vedas, about 3,500 years ago. Okay, so from that book, from that it began to be used as Bharat. And later this name was today we use it as the name of the country like India and Bharat. Okay, moving on. And there are various ways through which you can know about the past. Like you can read books which were written long, long ago, like manuscripts. Manu in itself means written. Okay, something that is written by hand. Okay, and where do people used to write back then? So people used to use palm leaves, especially the prepared bark of a tree that is basically known as birch and which used to grow in the Himalayas, and many of these were written in Sanskrit, and the common language that people used to speak was Prakrit, okay, and also Tamil. So this was manuscript from which we can know about the past. Other is the inscription as well through which we can know about the past. Inscription is something which is again written, but it is written on hard surfaces like stone or metal. And many a time kings also used to inscribe their orders so that people can see, they can read and obey them. And sometimes they fought battles, and when they used to win the battle, so they used to inscribe their victories in them. Okay. Also, many common people also used to inscribe their day-to-day activities. And so, who is an archaeologist? So archaeologist basically is a person who studies the people and whatever they did in the past uh, by the things that they left behind. Okay, so these are called as archaeologists. Moving ahead. So what do archaeologists look at? So they look for artifacts, whatever things that has been left behind by the people. Okay, so people of the past and whatever they made. So from them we can decode lots of things about the past. Okay. Like they also use, they archaeologists also do excavations, like they dig the surface of the earth. Okay. And they also study the bones of animals, birds and fish so that they can understand about what kind of food habit or food pattern people used to follow in the past. Also, they study plant remains. Okay. But plant remains, obviously, it barely survives for such long period of time. All right. So whatever evidence these archaeologists find, these are called as features. Okay. Now talking about the days. So you come across the letters like CE, BC, BCE, AD. So what these letters stand for? So CE stands for common era. Okay. AD stands for Anno Domini, and it means in the year of law. Basically, the year of the Lord means year of the Lord Jesus. All right. And BCE is before Common Era, and BC is before Christ. Okay. All the years before Lord Christ was born. All right. And all the dates before the Christ are called as are counted back. All right. Moving on. Now let's look at our question answers and let's discuss the Q&A of NCRT. So here we have to match the following. So first is Narmada Valley. And we have the first kingdom, hunting and gathering cities about 2500 years ago, early agriculture, the first cities. So we just read that Narmada Valley was the bank of the river around which people used to live, and people used to hunt and gather. Okay, so it is clear. And Magad. So Magad, we just read that it was a huge kingdom that existed, and it was in the Bihar location, and it was the very first big king. All right, clear. And then we read about Garo Hills. In Garo Hills, the very first agriculture started. Okay, and rice was grown. And the Indus and its tributaries around it and around the Ganga and its tributaries, the very first cities started to it. Okay, Ganga Valley, uh, the cities also around Ganga Valley as well, cities started to grow about 2500. So moving ahead. So the question is, list one major difference between manuscript and inscription. So both the things, manual itself is something that is written by hand. So manuscripts are basically the old books that are written by hand. Okay, and it can be either written on palm leaves or the bark of the trees called as birch. Okay, inscription is again something that is written or engraved, but on the solid material. Okay, like stone, etc. I hope it's clear. Moving ahead. So the question is return to Rashida's question. Can you think of some answer to it? So what Rashida was asking, let's look at. So Rashida was reading the newspaper and suddenly her eyes fell on a small headline. 100 years ago, how she won. Could anyone know that what had happened so many years ago? So it's basically she wants to know that how can we actually know about what happened like 100 years ago, 1000 years ago, or 8000 years ago. Okay, so we can actually know about them by reading books, by through manuscripts, through inscription that we just saw, through whatever artifacts or whatever things that people used to. Okay, like the tools, the weapons. All right. I hope it's clear. Moving. Then we have that you have to make a list of all the objects that archaeologists may find, which of these could be made of stone. So what all archaeologists can find? Archaeologists are the people who find things. Okay, they can also dig and excavate the earth to find the things. So these are the things that they can find. Okay, they can find bones, coins, ornaments, pans, pots, weapons, tools, remains of the buildings, old manuscripts, plant remains, inscriptions. All these things archaeologists can find. Okay, and the ones that could be made of stone are the surface that are used for writing inscriptions. We know that inscriptions are something that is written on uh, solid surfaces like stone. And also the remains of the buildings can be made of stone. And some of the tools and weapons that people used to use were made of stone. Okay, moving. Now the next question is why do you think ordinary men and women did not generally kept record of what they did? Okay, because we just saw that only kings and queens and the rulers they used to inscribe their things on the inscription. So why do you think that they were not writing or engraving there? So these are the reasons why they could have not been able to, or they must not be doing it. First, they did not know the art of writing in the beginning. It can be the reason. Also, the reason could be that only some of them were literate. Okay, and also maybe that they had this interest in such kind of a work. Also, they did not know the importance of keeping records of the event and the lack of historical sense was mainly responsible for it. So all these good reasons can be suggested why they did not recorded what they did. Okay, moving ahead. The next question is describe at least two ways in which you think the lives of king would have been different from those of farmers. So how can we think? So obviously the kings they used to have great palaces. Okay, wherever they lived, they had big houses. For if they earlier the rulers did not had palace, so they must be having big houses. Okay, whereas farmers they used to live in huts or maybe very small houses. Also, farmers were someone who used to grow their own crops and who produce food for themselves and also other people, whereas kings used to depend on farmers. Then the kings were very, expensive and they used to show off and they used to wear very expensive and luxurious items, clothes and ornaments, whereas the farmers, they wore very simple and very cheap clothes. Okay. So these can be the differences between the two. Moving ahead. Question number 7 is find the word craft person on page 1. List at least 5 different crafts that you know about today. Are the craft persons men, women, both men and women? Okay. So we have to find the craft. Okay. We have to list 5 different crafts that we know of today. So the today's craft persons are the architects, the industrialists, the artists, sports persons, writers, actors, scientists, musicians. These all are craft persons. Okay. They show their skills and talent. Okay. And the question is, can only men be the crafts person? or women or both. So from the chapter, we know that both men and women were craftspersons. Okay, I hope it's clear. Question number 8 is, what were the subjects on which books were written in the past? Which of these would you like to? So before paper was discovered, scholars they used to write on dried leaves, on the bark of the birch trees, and sometimes on stone or metals and clay. So the earliest of the books that were written back then were various of the Jatakas, the stories were there. Earliest Tamil epics are there. Ramayana and Mahabharat is there. Okay, Panchtantra is there. So what would you like to be? So we can maybe read Vedas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and stuff. Okay. So if you have any questions, so write down in the comment section below and we can discuss it. And if you haven't watched the previous videos that is already uploaded, go and watch it out. And if you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have to give any kind of a feedback, so you are free to give the feedback. Your feedbacks are really, really valuable. Okay. Thank you.